You are listening to These Are The Films, Episode 1, and this week we're going to be talking about a risky business. Hi everyone, and welcome to These Are The Films, a fortnightly podcast where we pick a film and we have a little chat about it. My name's Jim, and I'm here with my pal Crispin.
Hello. These are the films that we think are important. These are the films that have moved us in some way, changed the way we think, or had some sort of impact. These are the films that we think are remarkable, or we think we ought to have seen, or would like to see again. It's not a list of the best or the cleverest films. They're not unsung art house heroes or cult classics. They're not even necessarily good. They're just films.
So it works a bit like a book club. We tell you each episode what film we'll be covering next time and invite you to watch it too. You don't have to have watched the film to listen to this podcast, but we might ruin it for you if you haven't. There will be spoilers. We're not film buffs or experts. We just really like films and we like talking about them. And if you do too, you can always get in touch with us on Facebook, Twitter, email, etc. All of the details are on thesearethefilms.com. So, let's get started, shall we? It's the coming-of-age classic starring Tom Cruise, written and directed by Brickman, Risky Business. So, Crispin, unusually probably for this podcast, you hadn't seen this film before. So, I guess the question is, and did you like it?
Yeah, I did like it. It's weird as well. Like, not. I feel like I have seen it because I've seen the pants dance clip so many times on so many talking heads things. Anything about the 80s, anything about like coming of age, you know, they always have that scene on. And it wasn't until we started talking about whether, you know, we were going to do it for this podcast that I actually realised that I hadn't actually seen the film. When I tried to recall what happens in the film, all I had was Tom Cruise does a dance.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's most of the film, really, isn't it? I mean, it kind of sums it up. Well, I'm glad you liked it. It would have been a shame for me to make you sit through that without it being something that you enjoyed. I was, you know, you sort of think if you like those films from when you're a child and in the 80s and all those years ago, that maybe it's just sentimentality. And if you go and watch it back, it's just not going to work out the same way. But I enjoyed watching it back. I had a lot of fun watching it. I
will say it kind of grew on me as it went through. Like when it started off, I thought, oh, it's a bit tired, a bit, you know, I don't know what. I wasn't feeling particularly negative about it, but then as it went on, I think it became more apparent that the things that I was initially a bit sniffy about were actually very important to the film itself.
Yeah. I think one of the things that it's important to remember is that 83, I think, so it predates all of the films so all of the cliches in it, well, not all of them, but a lot of the cliches in it weren't cliches at the time, and it was a surprisingly influential movie. And as we get through it and talk about some of the scenes, I think that there are some very, very obvious parallels with it. And I mean, John Hughes' entire career is based on this one movie, isn't it? So that's probably a bit mean, but there's a lot of it in there. And I think that it didn't start a genre, but it certainly defined it, I think. I enjoyed watching it. I like the cast. I thought it was good. What I realised when we started deciding to do this movie and to do the podcast in general is that although I've spent quite a lot of time protesting and saying that I don't like Tom Cruise and I think he's a hack, it turns out I'm a massive Tom Cruise fanboy. And he's really good in this film. And it was the first, it kind of helped make him, really. You know, it was a very early one for him. And when you think about... What
had he done before? Because this is before even Legend, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's. I don't know if he. I can't remember exactly what came before, but Yeah, very early one. Certainly the first one that was big, I think. I'm sure someone will email in and correct me at some point about that. But
Mm.
yeah, it's certainly a very early film. You've asked me a question that I don't know the answer to, so we'll
Uh,
hastily move on. But he's been in some brilliant movies, and when I started thinking about
how much you loved him.
how much I loved him, I realised that I just love so many of his films. He's brilliant, and some of them are daft, like Top Gun, but things like A Few Good Men and Born on the Fourth of July are they're genuinely very, very good films. And I like the really cheesy ones as well, like Last Samurai, which I think kind of got a bit panned, but I'm a bit of a sucker for that going native kind of film. And in Tropic Thunder, yeah, have you seen Tropic Thunder where he's got those big hands?
Yeah. Yes.
That's very funny. I think he rescued a deeply ordinary movie with his performance in that. That was really good. And
Yeah.
apparently he just said to the director, yeah, dude, I just need some really big hands. And they were saying, Tom, what are you talking about? And they made him these really big hands. And it's really funny. He said, I'm going to have really big hands. I'm going to do a dance. And that's all Tom. It wasn't written for him. He just said, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have really big hands. And I'm going to do this silly dance.
Yeah. Well, do you reckon he actually, more than he said, this is what I'm going to do. And then they said, oh, great idea, Tom. And they're just like, oh, God. We've got to let him do it because it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And then we'll try one without Tom.
Here's your massive hands. Yeah. have you got Tom's massive hands?
We'll edit them out in post.
Just Photoshop them down to normal size hands in post. I don't know, Tom. Yeah, they were bigger. They did seem bigger on set. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I don't think we'll be covering Tropic Thunder though, so we can.
No, and getting back to Risky Business rather than the Tom Cruise library.
Yeah. Oh, I love a bit of Tom Cruise.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just take that down, Jim. That you do love a bit of Tom Cruise.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, we might as well just make this podcast the These Are the Tom Cruise Films podcast, because we'll be covering a lot of them. No, we definitely won't be doing that.
You can have one every 10 episodes maximum. That's your ration.
We've already agreed what the next one is, haven't we?
What, the next film or the next
Tom Cruise film?
Have we?
Cocktails and Dreams, baby. I have a distinct impression that is. I haven't seen that film since it came out, and I suspect that is a terrible movie. But I'll be interested to watch it again. I really liked it. Anyway,
yeah.
When it came out, and I was like 12.
Yeah, the way films date, and you have to, you've got to cut films some slack for that. You've got to. Like you said with the excuse me, with the cliches, and you don't, the earlier a film is, the less cliche it was when it came out, and you've got to let it go, not worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think with Risky Business, a lot of that, just remembering that this is the first one to do it, and it's not the 80s anymore, and give it a break a bit. But yeah, I mean, I watching it back, was there any other cast that really stuck out for you? Anyone that you really enjoyed?
Myles.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was watching it, it bugged me for the whole of the next day where I knew Myles from. And I was and it was sort of coming to me, and it's like coming to me in a dream, and I could see him like dressed up like Beetlejuice, and that's what I see. I could see his face as Beetlejuice, and I was thinking, where's this guy from? And of course, he's Booger from Revenge of the Nerds.
Curtis Armstrong is the actor's name, and I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think that he was in Moonlighting. Not that and that's weird because I can't really remember really seeing Moonlighting, because we were children when Moonlighting was.
I tell you what I remember about Moonlighting is that Bruce Willis had hair all over his whole entire head for all of it.
That was a seriously long time ago then, and yeah, do you know Barry, his friend, the partner in the Future Enterprises?
Yeah.
Do you know who he was?
Let me have a think. I'm trying to recall his face. No, give me a clue.
Bulky in Perfect Strangers.
I don't know. What's that?
Yeah, no, I thought that was a really, really. I saw him and I thought, that's Bulky in Perfect Strangers. And I just thought that's a really, really weird reference. No one's going to have a clue what I'm talking about. But it turns out Perfect Strangers, which was a sitcom, was absolutely massive in America, and it had like 9 seasons or something. But I think they showed like half a season in the UK. But somehow I caught it and I just remembered him. And he was also a guy called Serge in Beverly Hills Cop. He was like
in the shop.
Yeah, in the art gallery. Yeah, and he was like a proto Borat.
Yeah. Yes.
So when I remembered that, I watched the clip of it on YouTube and just put in Serge Beverly Hills Cop into YouTube because I remember it being like hilarious. This like weird Eastern European guy, and slightly effete, and I remember it being hilarious. So I watched it on YouTube, and it's just not funny at all. Not even in the slightest bit funny. And it didn't even, like, my mouth didn't even turn up at the corners in the slightest. It was so boring. But I rather suspect that all of Beverly Hills Cop, when you watch it back, is going to be like that. I think the things that Eddie Murphy was involved in the 80s may well have dated horribly, although none more so than Raw, which... I mean, no one's ever going to broadcast that ever again, are they? It's terrible.
True story.
But yeah, and I was looking at Bronson Pinchot, who's Barry's filmography, and he's in a film called Kung Fu and Titties, which I had to look at.
For research purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, it looks like we made it with a camcorder. I mean, it is rubbish. And I looked it up on IMDb, and it says things like, well, I saw Kung Fu and Titties, because it's obviously a comedy. It's not like a Mayer film or something. But it was like, I saw it at the blah, blah, blah film festival. And I was reading a review of it. It said, sometimes it looks a little low budget. Just think, low budget. Good Lord. I mean, it would look better if it was done on an iPhone. I mean, it was terrible. And, talking about perfect acting. And it's so weird. And I cannot understand for the life of me how Bronson Pinchot is in it. Because, I mean, he's not huge, but, I mean, he's been in movies. Like, I mean, it's not like he's nobody. I mean, that is so weird. So I definitely recommend. I can't say I recommend watching the film Kung Fu and Titties because I certainly haven't seen it, but I definitely recommend at least looking at a scene from it and not quite being able to believe that it's got an IMDb page, because it's just a couple of
someone's college project.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that. You wouldn't think that anyone there had studied filmography at all. It's very strange. Very, very strange indeed. But anyway, let's get away from Kung Fu Titties and back to the film that we were talking about. So, it kicks off just with the sort of dream sequence and the stress dream of the exams and that sort of thing, which I think is kind of a nice way to get it started, and it introduces him as being like quite nervous, and the whole bit at the start is just playing up how he's like a good. I mean, I've got to mention it. His character's name is Joel Goodson. Good son.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, battering me with the this is what this character's like. I mean, a little bit of subtlety in terms of the naming of the character would have been appreciated.
But Jim, I think this is a good point. This ties in actually to what I was saying earlier about how the film grew on me. Like at the beginning, I found his parents really, quite painful, obvious caricatures.
Yeah,
but I think that's the point, and that the point of him being called Good Son is that as well. I guess that they're so like, I don't know, like almost wooden, aren't they? The parents, yeah. and everything is really obvious, and we're constantly reminded about them and his status of privilege and that, and it's a constant thing through the film. So I imagine it's completely intentional. But as you say, yeah, you can take these things a little bit too far.
Yeah, I think so. Just dial it down just a tiny amount. But yeah, no, I take your point. I think that's probably fair. I mean, it's all about building up this idea of like his fear of his parents and how much that stops him from taking chances, and obviously that's how, when his parents then go away, you know, the inciting incident of the first act with him getting the house to himself and them leaving is it's kind of obvious, right? We've set up, he's terrified of his parents, he's getting the house to himself, let's see what he's going to do. I found that when he's taking his parents to the airport, we get like a point of view shot for the thing,
and that's a really important transition, isn't it? Because you've got that POV, and then it does a full 180, and then draws back from him, and that's the like click. That's the important point.
Oh, did you like that bit then?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It seemed I got a weird disconnect with it. I didn't really like it very much, and I'm not. I think my problem with it was I noticed it. When I don't usually, I try not to notice things like that. I like them to flow, you know, and noticing it kind of made it stick out a little bit. But I guess, you know, I'm.
Well, they don't usually do that, do they? They don't usually. It's they don't usually cut that direct. You never do a cut that's. You're always within that 180, aren't you? Rather than actually doing the 180 or going further around.
I suppose it's just I mean, the direct. What I did like about it is that the director's trying things, and I like that. You know, we're trying to get. It sets it apart. It means that it's not just trying different things is good. You know, the last thing I want to be doing is starting to have a dig at filmmakers for trying something different in a movie. You know, so yeah, I suppose hats off to him for it, really. But yeah, I mean, I see how. Again, I think the reason why it felt quite blunt to me is because I guess sometimes I feel like he's a bit heavy-handed with creating the idea of, you know, just setting up the whole thing of he's really frightened of his parents, and now we're getting into this stage where he's beginning to rebel and all that sort of thing. But I don't know. It probably wasn't that heavy-handed. I think I need to get used to the fact that I watched this film for a podcast as well. So I think probably over the course of doing these things, I'm going to get a little bit kinder towards people, because I need to get used to the fact that I'm watching a film as critically as I am. So it might be that. But yeah, it just felt a little bit weird to me. But weird is good. So yeah.
I agree with you. I think that's the thing that... that's the point when I was just thinking, no, I just got to let this go. I'm going to allow this film loads of things, and I think after I'd allowed it, then I realised that those were actually really valid mechanisms for making me think those things. And
cool, yeah. I think I've been allowing things because I came into it with it being my movie that I liked, and so I was able to be a bit more. I've allowed it in the past, you know. So I don't know. But yeah, so once we've done that and they've gone to the airport, he goes home and he has his TV dinner, and he fills up that tumbler full of Chivas Regal and then sticks a little bit of Coke in it, and he's just like, oh god, that's going to be the worst tasting drink I've ever seen in my life. Just don't put a Coke in it. Good lord. Good lord. What are you doing? Yeah, but I mean, it's cool, you know. It's a little bit of rebellion, and we're starting to see, you know, the levels to which he's prepared to go, which, you know, we've already determined from him having to hop on his bike earlier when they're talking in the I don't know why I'm pointing back there, when they're doing the having the poker game, and he's talking about having a not taking that chance. So it's interesting to see that he's immediately starting to do it, and then you get the old time rock and roll, which I don't know. It's a great scene, really, isn't it? You know, him just sliding out there in his pants and singing along.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become iconic because it's just a great bit of um, the history of movies. You know, that teenage movies, him cutting loose. Love it, love it. Great bit of film.
Yeah. And now it makes a lot more sense to me. Whereas before, it was, I knew that it started with,
Yeah.
and the hundreds of times I must have seen that. Well, maybe
Well,
not
he's not allowed to
hundreds.
play with a stereo, and he's playing with a stereo, which
Yeah.
is pretty tame, really, in the grand scheme of things. But he's starting to rebel. It's good. It's good. It's beginning that it's a coming of age story. We need to start somewhere, don't we? So, and it's a really good way of kicking it off, I think.
Mm.
But what I really like is the next scene, and all the students are together stressing about college, and they're just talking about money, and they're really into that whole
Yeah.
it's that Reaganomics, greed is good, Thatcherite thing,
Mm.
and then them being in the future enterprises and stuff, and I think that really sets up how everyone's feeling about where they are in their lives. College is very important. They've got to get good scores and grade point averages and all the other things which these teen comedies always end up talking about. I think that sets up really nicely that there's, we've got, he's got to cut loose, but by the same token, there's something that he's risking. There's something that there's a price to pay for it, and so he's got to. And he's kind of obsessed with it all. So I kind of like that scene just for setting it all up.
And again, that it was really forced, basically, wasn't it? It was there was no subtlety to it.
No.
It was, here is a setup. I love money. I love money. You love money. I just want money. It's all about the money.
Yeah.
Scene end.
Yeah.
Did everyone get the message?
I guess at this stage I must have started to cut him some slack with regards to that, because I'm slagging him off for having a point of view shot about 2 scenes earlier, and now I'm saying I like this shot, which is like being bludgeoned with the plot point. Yeah, I guess. But I like, and then the next bit is everyone, the kids going and having sex in his house and stuff, to set up the fact that everyone else is taking advantage of him having this opportunity and him not. It's really good.
Mm. Yeah, that's it. And he's not. Myles is cross about it.
Yeah, he's too scared, and it's a fear of his parents. Is the bad guy in the film Guido the pimp, or is it his dad? I think that's the thing, because his dad may not be in the film very much, but he's almost present in every scene. It's always about the fear of his dad all the way through it.
Yeah, I don't. Now you're talking about it. I don't know if I really even thought about there being bad guys in it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's more. It's not as unsophisticated as good guys, bad guys, but I mean, Guido the killer pimp is a bad guy.
Yeah. Who incidentally, no, him I placed immediately as Teddy from Memento.
Oh, okay. I didn't pick that one up. I didn't know who he was. He seemed to be a relatively well-known actor.
I think he's been in loads of things, but he's only ever in little.
Yeah,
he does little supporting things, but because
when
I saw him, I was just like,
look,
he's really young, but who is he?
Yeah, yeah, he was good though. I like Guido the Killer Pimp.
Yeah,
he was good. I like the fact that there's a character in that film called Guido the Killer Pimp as well. That's really good. But taking the car out, I think, is really good. It sort of sets that whole thing up as well. We've got to see him being naughty and getting the car out and having a bit of a rag with it, because you kind of feel like that's something that he's been specifically naughty towards his dad for, and I really feel like that's a really important that relationship is such an overarching thing in the film. So that's good. And then we get onto the whole prostitute thing, with Myles hassling him to get a prostitute, which I don't know. I mean, it doesn't feel like that was something that would be that common for teenagers to be getting embroiled in. Certainly not. I mean, I don't know if I had a sheltered upbringing or not, but I feel like if when I was that age, if someone had said to me,
Did you not go? Did you not ring up a prostitute
Yeah.
the first time your parents went away?
I think that was probably yeah, a little odd, but you know, you have to go with it. It's where the film's going, isn't it? And you know, no matter how clumsily you set something up, you have to let it be set up, don't you? So,
Yeah. And you know, it's. I think it's also, you know, it's kind of important as well that Myles is like giving off this air that he's it's just like, why wouldn't you just do this?
yeah,
But really, when you look at it, Myles has absolutely no intention of pursuing any of this himself. He's just stitching Joel up.
yeah, yeah.
Because,
Well, Miles is playing and thinking, you know, Miles is all talk and no action the whole way through the film, and I think that Joel coming to realise that and the power shift between Miles and Joel is a really important part of the film as well. You know, that's when you first start seeing Joel becoming,
yeah,
as he comes of age and becomes more powerful, the person who he first becomes more powerful than is Miles. Sorry. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing. But yeah, he's definitely massively stitching him up, and it's like a sort of almost at the time you don't know because you don't know how the character is going to develop, but he definitely doesn't. He doesn't come through with any of the things which he says he's going to, does he?
No. And it's interesting you mentioned that because I hadn't thought about like that stepped thing until you mentioned it about Myles. But then also like who's the guy that he's in Young Enterprise business
Barry.
with? Barry. So he also there's a shift between him and Barry, isn't there? Where they're kind of arguing when they're in some meeting, aren't they?
Yeah.
And he's basically being told off by Barry for not doing any work.
All of sales, all of marketing gets involved with,
And Barry's like, oh, look, here's my brilliant invention. And then it just switches over when, later on in the film.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think at the start, Barry and Joel are kind of more at the same level. And him leaving Barry, because Barry's kind of nerdy, and then him leaving Barry behind. And then we're very much given a lot of barometers of where Myles is in terms of Joel is in terms of his self-confidence and stuff, and I think that Barry is the way where he starts, and then he gets past Myles, and then he's starting to play with the big boys when he's standing up to Guido and even I don't know why I've forgotten Rebecca De Mornay's character's name.
I don't know either.
That's totally fallen out of my head. That's weird. Lana. So yeah, one of the things which I thought was quite weird was so he calls the first prostitute, and when they arrive, they're transgender, and it doesn't seem to be mentioned or covered at all. All I remember about it is that when I watched the movie when I was a kid, I didn't know what transgender was. So when I watched it this time, I was like, oh, yeah, that's funny. But then there was no sort of real...
no mention of any of it.
No, it wasn't really played up at all, other than... I mean, you know, he answered the door, and maybe if it had been Lana the first time instead of a massive tall fella, he might have been more keen, but... You know, you still got the impression it wasn't clear whether he didn't want to sleep with the prostitute because she was a transgender person, or whether it was because he just didn't want to have a prostitute in the house. But you know, I thought it was kind of what I thought about that really was that it was interesting that they didn't make a deal out of someone being transgender in the 80s when films in the 80s really bullied transgender people, and it was interesting to see a transgender character not being bullied in a film that old, you know, which I guess is good. I don't know. But yeah, It was her line is when he gives him Lana's number is it's what every white boy off the lake wants, and that was originally going to be the title, "White Boys Off the Lake."
Was it?
So yeah, that's a little bit of trivia for you. I looked that one up. I've done my research.
Good for you.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. I like the whole that bit where he's not sure whether he should call Lana or not, and he's winding himself up about it, and he has his little fantasy get off the babysitter, turning into a stress dream thing.
Yeah. that bit's verging on the completely bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then I think again
because he's not asleep, so you would have thought he'd have slightly more control over where his mind was roaming to.
Just gonna have a fiddle fantasy about loads of cops surrounding my house with megaphones.
And my dad shouting at me with a megaphone.
Yeah.
But I suppose it just gets that whole his dad being able to be there even though he's not there. You know, the kind of overarching presence thing.
Yeah. I'm sure there's probably some. I guess there's something sort of deeper and psychologically artistic or something that we're missing with some placement here, or maybe they just thought it was funny.
I think it's just a bit clumsy. I think that's all it is.
All right.
I think it's just kind of didn't do that good a job because it's I'm not sure what it sets up that we didn't already know. You know.
But there's there's a lot in the film as well that is that seems like a dream sequence, but is shot not like a dream sequence, or is actual real life, but then is shot like a dream sequence. Like, I don't know if I'm going to jump ahead too far here. No, I think it's just like the next up when he's dialed up the number, and she's going to come round, and he's getting all prepped and waiting for her, and then that's a real dream sequence.
Yeah.
Like especially like the shots of the house. Do you know when he's just waiting there and we're looking at doors, and I kept imagining the doors were going to burst open, and all the bikers out of Weird Science are going to ride into his house, but they didn't. It was a prostitute
no, the
instead.
doors do burst open randomly, don't they?
Yeah.
Which, I guess...
And some leaves came in.
Yeah, I guess that was considered artistic at the time. But do you know what? The dream thing, I absolutely agree with you about that.
They didn't stop though, did they? Could have been anyone. Could have been anyone coming in the door. Could have been his mum and dad.
They did seem a little distracted, didn't they?
Yeah.
They definitely did. Yeah, and when I was 11 or 12 when I watched that movie, that sex scene I think was probably I think that was quite saucy enough for me at the time. Yeah,
I bet.
Yeah, I think I was quite pleased with that. You know, the fact that I was watching that movie and it was probably fairly inappropriate for me at the age I mean, I don't know how old I was when I first watched that movie, but I was definitely at primary school, so I was I could have even been in single figures. So, that definitely left an impression on me. But I think one of the things that
moving on.
Yeah, well, quite. One of the things that makes it so dreamlike is the music. Tangerine Dream.
Yeah, who's Tangerine Dream? I saw them come up at the beginning. I was like, well, that rings a big bell. Who's that?
Yeah, they're like a sort of 70s and 80s. They do music like that, you know, it's kind of experimental and electronica and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's very dreamy, and you know, I think that the soundtrack really helps to create that dream sequence and a sort of feeling of it, you know. And I think that when Lana arrives, that all feels very dreamy, you know. And the sex scene that they have, it doesn't, whether it's reality or not, is kind of it's one of those blurred moments that is a dream sequence, is it not? And yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with their soundtrack. Which is
and it's I guess totally brought up again with Drive. Really, really similar, isn't it?
Yeah,
with that whole sort of slow, very calm music, but actually the complete opposite is going on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, cool. And and that's really where we get to the end of Act One. She wakes up in the morning, and when he goes off to get the money, she steals the egg, which and there we go, end of Act One. It's all set up, ready to go. So yeah, and I really enjoyed the setup. Really, I think it's well done, and now it's action stations. He's rebelled, and now we're in a situation where he could very well get in a lot of trouble. So yeah, obviously he's freaking out about it all, and this is the point that Myles admits that he didn't mean any of that. The nonsense about what the F and all that, and that Joel shouldn't have listened to him, and and it's at this point that you start seeing
that's the power shift. Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's kind of. I think it's more. I don't think Joel's getting there yet, but Myles is certainly, now that they're in trouble. Myles is coming down in the. So I think that's kind of important, because it's when this is what kind of feeds the power shift, in that Joel starts to see that what people are projecting to him isn't reality, and
that's kind of cemented, isn't it? Like, forgive me if I'm jumping ahead too far, but then the when they're in the car a bit later on, do you want to say something before I jump ahead?
No, you're right.
But I think that's the point, with him driving around in the car to escape Guido. Is then, this is when Myles. That's it. You're done. You're completely exposed as a charlatan.
Yeah.
You've sat in the back of the car of the biggest Porsche ever.
Yeah.
Look how much space he's got in the back of that Porsche.
Do you know what? I never thought that was a particularly handsome-looking car. I mean,
it was a hatchback, Porsche hatchback.
I'm not a big car man, really, but I've never found that to be a very attractive car. And I have to confess that as the years have gone by, cars which I thought were a bit ugly, I now have like a sort of a retro appeal to them, and I wondered if I would like that car now, but no, I still very much don't like that car. I think it's a very ugly car. I think that of all the cars that they could have picked, and of all the Porsches they could have picked, they very much picked the wrong one. It's not a very nice car at all, which is weird. But yeah, you're absolutely substitute. Right. And after he says, Porsche, there is no substitute, Myles leans in and says, F you. But in the version I saw on the telly, it had been cut, which is really weird, because it had all the mucky bits, but it had quite a lot of the swearing taken out of it. And at that point, Myles leans in and says, love it. And that was my favourite line in the whole film. And it wasn't even the right line. And when I saw it again, and he didn't say, love it, and he said... I thought, oh, that's a shame, because I always thought that was quite funny, because it was such a weird thing to say, because he so obviously didn't love it.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's the point where that's the power shift. That's the point where Joel is now cooler than Myles, and you see it happening during at first he's scared of Guido, and then at the end he's, I think I can take him and all that thing, and he's off, and now he's in charge. So taking charge of the situation and stuff. I think that's a good point for him. Yeah. And so they get back to his house, don't they? After that, and I think a really good part of the script is when he leaves Lana in the house in the morning, and he's kind of really concerned about it because he's got to go to school. And he says, don't steal anything. If I come back here and I find anything missing, I'm going straight to the police. And she says, Joel, go to school, learn something. And, I think that's a nice bit of a nice line there. Because it's like, yeah, he needs to learn some stuff, and it's good. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, and it's after that we start setting up the whole idea of, having a brothel in his house.
Yes,
just there we go. Let's just have a brothel now.
Yeah. which is is a bit of a weird leap, and then, like for me that was a really weird point. Thinking, okay, right, so her mate's popped round then to have it off with one of his friends.
Yeah,
and here's your cut.
Yeah, 50 to the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's a good point because Guido turns up when they're doing that, doesn't he? And they run in the house, and Joel actually stands up to Guido, and at this point, this is the first point at which Joel is actually becoming a man. The change in his. So I think that's a really important for him, and that's what sets up. The prostitutes could come to the lake and sleep with a bunch of minors. Are they children? And make loads of money. So
I don't know how old high school.
They're still at high school, right? Well, I guess you'd still be you could be 18,
right?
But I would imagine that some people in the final year of high school are 17 and some are 18. I guess the older ones will spend most. I don't know. Well, but yeah,
exactly. We don't need to go full Yuri on it.
No,
it's a film.
Yeah.
Just taking down some particulars.
But that's the point. It's all very fun, and Joel's feeling very pleased with himself, and so they drive the Porsche to the lake and stick the car in the lake.
Yeah.
So, and that's the midpoint. From then on, we're solving that problem and stuff. And I think that, is it too obvious to point out the things that this film has in common with John Hughes films? Like,
I think that'd just be a whole nother hour, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But the big ones, yeah.
At this point, the car in the water, to me, it's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? Mm. With and then because you've got, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is this film. It's the same movie, but I think the Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off is Joel and that's why it's his car. Mm. And I think what's nice about Ferris Bueller's Day Off is that it's Day Off's about Cameron, right? It's not about Ferris, because Ferris doesn't change. He just goes through the whole thing. Nothing happens to Ferris.
Yeah.
If that film was about Ferris, it'd be the most boring film ever.
Yeah, but I think that's the point. Is that loads of the characters change, don't they?
Yeah. The stories are the story's actually about Cameron, and there's a lot of it's about his sister as well.
Yeah, exactly.
She has a story arc too. But yeah, and I think that's probably why Ferris Bueller is probably a better movie, because that's a nice trick. You make it about Ferris, but it's not really about Ferris. Yeah. It's about Cameron. And I think the other thing about it, which makes it a better movie, is that although you don't see Cameron's third act, you don't see Cameron go and do that, talking to his dad about it. Cameron doesn't fix his car. Mm. He grows more. He stands up to his dad.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, so, and I think that's more interesting, because Joel in this movie he may grow as a person, and yeah, he can stand up to Guido, the killer pimp, and Lana and Myles, but he never stands up to his dad. He never goes that far, which I think makes him more of a human, because that's, I think that's a thing which you see films that are about 40-year-old men who still have problems with their fathers, so I think it's realistic in that respect. But yeah, I think it's interesting for him that although he comes of age in lots of different ways, at the end he's still raking leaves with his dad.
More than that. Like you get to the end, and his ultimate goal is of pleasing his father, and and fulfilling his father's wishes, and basically being subservient to his father is fulfilled.
And his father never finding out what happened.
Mm.
that is there's the bit of the I mean, we're jumping forward to the end quite a lot there, but I've got to tell you, I don't know. I really think that the whole of the second half of Act Two is just so boring. I mean, everything after the Porsche goes in the lake.
Yeah, Porsche goes in the lake. How are you going to fix Daddy's Porsche? Well, you've got to run a brothel, a massive one, in one night. You've got to go around to every single miner that you know and sell a prostitute to them. At least one. Go.
Yeah. I thought it was also that all of that setup was really boring. So, and then to be honest, I thought the sort of brothel party scene was quite boring as well. Apart from they're listening to the Talking Heads at the party, which is cool. Hey, that song is just a wicked song. And the Princeton guy turning up, I think that's when it starts getting interesting again because
with him turning up as well. Like I thought that was done quite well because I'd completely forgotten about him.
Yeah. It was only just sort of mentioned, so that was set up really nicely because we were just as surprised as Joel. There's been so much going on, and it was a casual throwaway comment, and now suddenly, actually, in terms of where Joel wants to be at the start of this movie, this moment is the most important moment in his life, and we've completely forgotten all about it. And now he's got this party / brothel, and now he's got to look after this dude. So, I thought it was really good, but that's when
luckily for him, the guy really likes prostitutes.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that tells us a story of how you get into an Ivy League university in America is bribe the admissions officers with prostitutes. So there's the lesson for us today. But that's kind of in that thing. That's where he gets the acceptance. He realizes that he's blown it, and he starts calling him Bill instead of Mr. Rutherford, and that's where he gets his assumption of power. That's when he becomes the guy. And then it's really boring again. There's the train thing, and although nice use of In the Air Tonight, I have to play air drums to that bit.
Oh yeah, Phil. When Phil came up, when Phil started coming on, I was like, Phil. Looking for the gorilla on the back of the train.
Fantastic. I mean, really, at the end there.
I tell you what, though, just staying with the subway for a few more seconds. Does that really happen in America? Do people get off the train and then there's no one on the train? Does that actually happen? Has that ever happened to you on the tube in London?
No.
I did. It's happened to me once. It wasn't. I wasn't having sex with a prostitute on the tube.
Of course.
But I did. It was when the overground first opened, and I got on it, and it was a completely empty train. And then another guy got on, and we were like, and we took pictures of each other on each other's phones on an empty train.
Are any trains that unusual? I don't think I've ever even thought about that. I know I've woken up on an empty platform before.
Cockfosters.
Yeah, probably one of the ones on the end. Anyway, I woke up on an empty platform once, and it was in Finsbury Park, and I was home. I just got off the train and at the right stop, but fell asleep at the station.
Oh, it's a really tiring tube journey.
Yeah, knackered.
I just have a little sit down.
I was pedaling it the whole way. Yeah, so, I mean, he gets his Porsche and all that sort of thing, and then has to do the negotiating the furniture and all of that with Guido. And
I said, right, here's the thing that actually confused me in the film. So he has to go on the tube journey all the way around the circle line or whatever till no one's left.
Yeah.
And is that specifically so? All the all the prostitutes can take all of the stuff out of his house and give it to Guido.
Unresolved.
Right.
Yeah. Unresolved. That's the point. He asks about it at the end. And she says that it wasn't a setup. But there is a scene earlier where she's measuring up carpets and stuff. So,
Yeah.
So, but it's unresolved. You don't know. She denies it, and she says, "You don't believe me, do you?" And he says, "No." Or do you know what? I can't even remember what he says. But it's meant to be left ambiguous.
Right.
But he clearly kind of thinks that she did. Maybe he's not. I think he's not sure either. But yeah, I think that the ending of it, and we probably shouldn't have gone back. Really, the point was the ending is everything from there up to the ending is pretty boring, Joel never gets any sort of resolution with his relationship with his father, and he gets into Princeton, and his dad never finds out that he did anything naughty.
Yeah. So then, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the assumption that I made was that so he's actually going to Princeton to run a brothel. That's what I thought. That's what I thought was going on.
I don't know. That's not quite what I got. I think that since that he was wanting to study business at Princeton, I think that Bill Rutherford, admissions officer at Princeton, felt that Joel was quite good at running a business, and so he thought he would be good to go there to study, not to go there and.
Well, that's a brilliant example of
the faculty
of that sort of privilege, isn't it? Then, because he's basically handed that entire business by the prostitutes.
Yeah,
they just say, "Well, we'll just come and do this."
Yeah,
and you can have loads of money.
Yeah,
and that maybe that's it. That's the metaphor for exactly that sort of privilege. Is you go to Princeton. So you can learn. So you could major in business, but you're already coming from this, this massive stock of money, and you don't need to go to Princeton. Yeah. You don't need to learn business because this is all just going to be handed to you. Yeah. It's all a complete farce.
He's barely learned anything, really, to be honest. I mean, it's a coming of age story, but the more we talk about it, the more I don't like this movie. He's still scared of his dad. Weirdly, at the end. His mum gives him a massive telling off for the egg.
Yeah.
She doesn't know the half of it, and he still gets a massive telling off, which he just takes. His dad is still terrified at the end. He thinks he's got away with it, and then he thinks that maybe his dad's caught him out, and he's terrified. So the only person that he's bettered is Myles, Guido the killer pimp, and Lana.
Guido did all right out of it, really, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he got all the money in the end, didn't he? But at least Joel kind of stood up to him, I suppose. There's a different ending. There's an alternate ending that the director much preferred,
right?
Where Joel kind of is, because in the ending for that was actually released, he has dinner with Lana and he asks, "Was it a setup?" And she says no, and Joel doesn't believe her. And then they go for a walk in the park, and she says, "Do you want to spend the night with me?" And he starts making the joke about how much is that going to cost and all that sort of thing. But in the alternate ending, it's much less. He doesn't, he's like, we'll never see each other again. They very much are split up at the end of the alternate ending.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is probably a bit better, because then he does actually grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was good. The director, obviously, he much prefers the alternate ending, but the studio were like, no, we need to give it a bit more of a happy ending. And I guess in a way,
at the end.
Yeah, because I guess
thanks for all your hard work with putting this film together, writing it, directing it, sorting everything out. Your ending, your last thing that you really wanted, it didn't really test so well, so we've swapped it to something that makes it a bit worse.
Yeah, yeah. But by the same token, I guess from the studio's point of view, they were saying, dude, we've just let you make a movie that's just got loads of hookers in it. Can we cut us some slack? Give us at least some semblance of a happy ending at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely spoils Joel's growth because, you know, he doesn't actually grow anywhere near. And in the end, it becomes less of that and more of just, well, here are some interesting things that happen to a very privileged boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I do like the I like the way it ended when it's got all the future enterprises doing their speeches.
Yeah.
And he says, "My name is Joel Goodson. I deal in human fulfillment. I grossed over $8,000 in one night. Time of your life, huh?" And I like that. I thought it's a really nice. It ends really nicely because there's you know that bit of voiceover of it, and it just kind of closes the film really nicely. I thought it was good.
Yeah. Do you know? I think that us talking about it just now, I think I've got more respect for the film, and I feel like I like it more after having talked it out, because I think that now I'm seeing it much more as a satire.
Yeah. Okay.
Than previously it was just it was more of a coming of age comedy, little bit pokey at the like American privilege and Ivy League and that sort of thing, but now I think I'm seeing more of a satire about it than I did when I actually watched it.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I like that. Yeah, it was good. So yeah, okay. Well, halfway through this podcast, I'd kind of decided that I didn't like the film anymore, and now we've got to the end, and yeah, I like that comment. I feel like you've rescued the movie for me. It's been a roller coaster. I'm telling you, I've been up and down. It's been hard work, but yeah. So, any other thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm pleased with the film. Yeah, definitely. I think odd that he didn't really direct anything else. Nothing else. You know, it was a big hit at the time. It's not like it became a cult classic. It was a big hit at the time, and yeah, other people in the film seem to go on to bigger and better things, and yeah, he didn't really seem to do very much else, and kind of turned his back on it a little bit. I think doesn't seem to.
Do you think he was having a big sulk about them changing the ending?
I think he's very precious about the ending.
An expensive sulk.
Yeah, I don't know.
Still
I
sulking.
think he's probably made a couple of quid out of it.
35 years later, still sulking. Come and do another film. No, you just changed the ending.
Well, the ending's out there. You know, you can see it on YouTube. And yeah, he's very interviews with him. He's very, very keen for people to watch the alternate ending. So yeah, I do think he was fairly miffed about it. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Well, anyway, I thought it was really interesting. Yeah. So for our listeners, I'd love to hear what you thought of the film and what we thought of it as well. So you can get in touch by visiting our website at thesearethefilms.com or email us at show@thesearethefilms.com, facebook.com/thesearethefilms, and tweet us at thesearethefilms. So Crispin, what film are you going to bring to the table next week?
So next week, the film that we will be watching is, or the film that we'll be talking about, we already have watched, is Shane Meadows' Dead Men's Shoes.
That's a great movie.
It is a brilliant film. I think it's definitely one of my top 10 films ever.
Well, I mean,
absolutely love the film.
I mean, I'm a great fan of British cinema, so yeah, my top 10 is mostly British stuff.
Is it all like Confessions of a Window Cleaner in that?
Yeah, definitely. Those 60s sex comedies. It's all of those, and it's 8 of them, and All or Nothing by Mike Leigh and Dead Man's Shoes by Shane Meadows. Yeah, it's
Great.
them. Yeah. Because you got to balance it out. You got to have the ridiculous sex farces and your horrifyingly miserable British reality films, haven't you? Very important.
Yeah.
Got to balance it up.
Get that film watched then, and we'll be talking about that next time. In the meantime, do get in touch with us on social media. And until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. Froggy Love Daddy.
Daddy Love Froggy.